Hello, Warhammer 40K players, especially competitive players who are interested or they already play the Imperial Guard or the Astra Militarum. In this video, I'm going to pretty much do a little bit of discussion on my experiences going to my first GT, which was the Scorched Earth Open, held at the end of February and the beginning of March in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a larger event, 128 player maximum. I think 116 people signed up. And I really was not expecting the level of competitiveness when I signed up. Apparently, they had a golden ticket around, so I got to meet a lot of the more famous players, the guys who are being talked about on YouTube. And it was my first GT. I didn't get enough practice into some of the meta armies, but luckily, I didn't have to play Necrons. But I did have to play Tau, and I definitely was not ready to play against Tau. I have never played against Tau before this event, playing the Imperial Guard, because in my local meta, everybody just plays Marines. Most of the games you're going to get are Marines, and there are more Knights players than normal. I don't know why. Apparently, they're not very good um, in the top competitive win rates, but I think, if you know how to play knights, they're okay and they're cheap and affordable and a great beginner army that you can definitely start getting into the game with. So I like knights as an army, and there are more knights players than usual that I expected. I actually got paired into two knights games this tournament. And so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over my list a little bit and tell you why I brought the units that I brought. And I'm playing the Grizzled Company, which has a little bit higher win rate than normal. It's not broken like Bridgehead was, but it did get nerfed right before this event. We did lose the reroll ones to wound against an enemy on an objective, so it did get nerfed a little bit, but this was before Rogel Dorns went up to 260 points and the Dorn Commanders went up to 290 points. So it was, in between two different nerfs. But after we go over that list, I'm gonna pretty much show you some photos of the event and some of the cool people that I've got to meet, and then I will do an in-depth action after action report of every single one of the six games that I played, more or less in depth from what I remember and what I have from the photos. So first of all, let's go over our list. We have the Lord Solar Leontis Command Blob with 10 Cadian Shock Troops. We have one Rogaldorn Tank Commander with a Quillon Eye enhancement, and that's the one that allows you to give a different kind of order called Target Weak Spot, which essentially increases your AP. And we got the Rogaldorn Battle Tank, that's the one that has a blank. We have two Leman Russ Exterminators. It has the standard issue loadout and the optional loadouts. I'm taking the multi meltas and the last cannon. I got a Hellhound, and I was taking Inferno and Bolters. Why? Because the old school Hellhounds, that's what they come with, and the Inferno cannons, not half as bad of an Overwatch. Usually, I end up overwatching with my Rogaldorn Tank Commander, though. People are terrified of the Hellhound, and it is a good addition. You do get 1 CP stratagem to ignore cover on demand on one unit in Grizzled Company, but it's a CP that I don't have to spend if I bring a Hellhound. And then we have three Chimeras with heavy bolters, and I'll explain that later. And then I have two 10-man units of Catachan Jungle Fighters and two 3-man units of Ogrins, Gaunt's Ghosts, 5 Rattlings, and a Tech Priest Engine Seer. Okay, so first of all, the reason I take Lord Solar Leontis is because I am running 2 Dorns, 2 Exterminators, a Hellhound, and 3 Chimeras. That's 8 tanks. And sure, I could take 2 Rogaldorn tank commanders. In Grizzled Company, I get an extra order, so I can give out 6 orders, and if I use Snap to it, I can give out 7, but I don't get the 8 orders that I need. With Lord Solar Leontis, I can give out 7 squadron orders and then get my 8th squadron order with Snap to it stratagem if I need it. Usually I don't need it. But the great thing is that even if you lose your chimeras early, your hellhound dies, Lord Solar Leontus does not only give out squadron orders, he gives out regiment orders and titanic orders as well. Now, I don't have any titanics in this current list, but it's nice because if you can order all your tanks, you can order all your tanks in the beginning after your chimeras die, and you start trying to OC dump onto objectives and your infantry go out to play. Then Lord Solar can give duty and honor, for example, to an infantry unit later on in the game so they can sticky it and walk off. So there's a lot of flexibility you can use. And plus he has the three unit redeploy at the start of the game ability, and he also gives you bonus CP. So the bonus CP really helps a lot because you might want to spam lethal hits. You might want to spam Overwatch. I have the Rogaldorn Tank Commander and I have the Hellhound, and those are great Overwatch options. You could also Overwatch with a Chimera if you really needed to, but usually it's my Rogaldorn Tank Commander overwatching bigger targets and Hellhounds overwatching chaff. And so if you want to spam Overwatch and lethal hits, it's nice to have Lord Solar Leontis. You can also CP reroll a failed save roll because you have a Tech Priest Engine Seer. So let's say you put a 4-up invul on your Rogaldorn Commander, you roll a 3 or a 2 or a 1 against a Railgun shot. You can have an extra CP to reroll that so you don't take, some units can do up to 14 damage a shot. So you definitely don't want to be eating that kind of damage on your Rogaldorn Tank Commander. So CP rerolling a failed save roll is also possible. There's a lot of benefits to having bonus CP. Ursula Creed lets you save a CP, but she does not give squadron orders, and that's why I'm taking Lord Solar Leontis. This squad in the current iteration of the missions also can be used sitting in the back line and screening to deny Call the Horde. So the enemy pulls Call the Horde, you say, yes, I am callable because your unit only has to have starting strength 13, I believe. And so you are callable currently. In the past, I think it was 25. But the Lord Solar Leontis, the Cadian Command Squad, Cadian Shock Troops are callable. And if you play them in the back and you don't push them out too early, then you can deny Call the Horde, which is nice. Now, why am I taking Aquilon Eye? I think it's auto include because Aquilon Eye, it helps the Lehman Russ Exterminator, it helps the Hellhound, helps the Chimeras, and it helps the Rogaldorn Tank Commander. So let's say it's turn one and I just peek the barrel out, right? From behind a ruin, I just peek the barrel out and I'm not exposing my tank, but I am setting up for Overwatch, right? And an opponent decides to walk within 24 inches of my Rogel Dorn. Then I can Overwatch with the Dorn Commander and Aquilon Eye, um, well, target weak spot. That's the order name. It gives you bonus AP, and bonus AP is actually relevant in the opponent's turn, unlike take aim, which doesn't help you get unmodified sixes. And so the Rogaldorn Commander is great for overwatching, and Aquilon Eye, if you're not gonna fire at anything, or if you know you're already gonna overkill something, then you can always give Aquilon Eye to the Rogaldorn Commander. Generally, take aim is better though. Onto a Hellhound, um, take aim. It will help the heavy bolters. It will help your hunter killer, but target weak spot, the bonus AP helps all your weaponry. So especially if you're setting up the Hellhound for Overwatch, you can give it a Quill on Eye. But normally, what I like to use it on is the Ogrins that are embarked inside the Chimera. And if you watch some of my other videos, you'll kind of see how I like to play my mechanized style. I don't send out battle line, and I don't keep 10-man units inside my transport because I have rolled a ton of ones and lost a lot of one wound models. Ogrins, you're not rolling 10 dice, you're rolling 3 dice. They also do have a feel no pain and 3 wounds each. So you're not losing models when your transport gets destroyed. So what I like to do is I like to scout up with the Catachan Jungle Fighters and then drop them off within 3 inches, walk 6 inches into behind a ruin to kind of bank them for OC dumping later on in the game, or they can just walk onto a blue ruin. And then since they're fully within the ruin, they can fire their flamers out, they can throw grenades, and generally on GW terrain layouts 1 and 8, the ruins are close enough to the middle objective that you can OC dump on it and you can just pretty much walk onto that ruin and fire out of it. So I like to bank my infantry and then pretty much transport swap by putting the Ogrins inside the Chimera and then finally moving the Chimera where it needs to go, which is typically gonna be on an objective because I need to start contesting objective earlies to win the primary game, right? And so I push the Chimera onto an objective, so it's in the beginning of the game. Usually I'll have at least one Chimera that's eligible to use the lethal hit stratagem. So you got the lethal hits, you got the reroll ones, and then you have heavy bolters on the Chimera. I don't run the flamers, I run the heavy bolters because flamers don't help you with lethal hits. And the heavy bolters, they're the same profile as the Ogren's Ripper guns that are coming out of the firing deck. So you use lethal hits, you get reroll ones, and your heavy bolters that are on the Chimera, you have 6 shots that are lethal and sustained. So now you have a Quill on Eye, the bonus AP order. And, you know, it's actually more relevant, especially if your opponent is Marines. They have armor of contempt. They smoke. They have armor of contempt. They can really, really have saves that are tough to punch through. But if you got Ogrins out of the firing deck, they have AP -1. You ignore cover, you strip cover. That's a straight AP -1. And then you have the Aquilon Eye enhancement. That's AP -2. If you happen to have an exterminator who can fire the main gun at the opponent, you can get up to AP -3. Straight AP -3. And now that's gonna do some damage. Whereas AP -1, it could be completely useless. AP -3, you can start punching into heavier targets. In some of my practice games, I one-shotted a Vindicator with this combo, and I also one-shotted a Gladiator Lancer. Almost one-shotted. I had to fire Hunter-Killer missiles from some of my other transports to finish off targets, but it did do a solid amount of damage to a Repulsor Executioner after the Lehman Russ Exterminator already fired on it. So it's not something to laugh at, you gotta really respect the Ogren Chimera Bang Bus with heavy bolters and just stacking bonus AP. This is how my list plays. Yeah, I got Dorns. You know, I got Gaunt's Ghosts, I got Rattlings, I got Lord Solar. I have a lot of other stuff in the list, but the core strategy of this list is pushing up Chimeras with Ogrins, getting the lethal hits, stacking that AP, and just blowing enemies away from the objective early. That is my game plan. And I take Rattlings and Gaunt's Ghosts because they're an inspiration from Nick Jagiello's list. So this list type, it was inspired half by Nick Jagiello from Canada, who plays Hammer of the Emperor, and he plays a similar combo, but he prefers 3 Vanquishers. I don't like the 3 Vanquishers because in my local meta, you have a lot of Terminators, a lot of 4-up saves, and without dev wounds, the Vanquisher is it's not swingy. It's completely unreliable. If the opponent has a 4-up invul save and they have a CP save, your Vanquishers could completely whiff and do absolutely nothing. They are I think the Vanquisher is extremely terrible. It's only good against Land Raiders and Guard Mirrors, like people who run Rogaldorn tank commanders without Tech Priest Engine Seer. And that's why I bring the Tech Priest Engine Seer, because if I get into a one-on-one firefight, Rogaldorn Tank Commander versus Rogaldorn Tank Commander, the enemy is unlikely to kill me if I have a Tech Priest Engine Seer. I am that much more durable, and I'm going to win a one-on-one just because I have that Tech Priest. It also does repair vehicles. So how I play the Tech Priest Engine Seer is usually I'll mark the Chimera that I'm going to push out onto the objective to bait with the Ogrins inside, and then I will keep it around so next turn I could put that 4-up invul save on a Lehman Russ. That's the part of the next wave. Or if the enemy's playing a little bit more shooty army, Then I'll put it on my Rogaldorn tank commander. Usually that one engine seer goes on the side where my tank commander goes. And the reason I bring a regular Rogaldorn battle tank is he has a blank. So, it's a I get a 4-up invul on one, I get a blank on the other. They should survive against most things. But when we go through the battle reports, I'll show you that they don't. They don't survive against certain opponents. How? And then so yeah, that's my list. Mordian Glory, he likes putting infantry in chimeras. He loves Katachan. I love Katachans. I don't play what he plays. He doesn't play Tech Priest Engine Seers. He doesn't play Ogrins. But I do like Katachans starting out in chimeras and then banking them, replacing them with Ogrin. That's what I play, and against most opponents, I've had really good success with that. So anyway, that's my list. And now I'm gonna talk a little bit about the GT and the venue. The venue was at a school, Creighton. It was Creighton something public school, and we were inside the gymnasium auditorium thing. I don't know. It's just a big, wide open area, and there's a little raised platform where they were streaming games. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough to get on one of those streams, but one of the coolest factors about this event was that I got to meet Hayden Hodge. Now, some of you will be like, I might remember that name, and others will be like, who the fuck is Hayden Hodge? And I'm tell you right now, in Joshi's video, quite a while ago, this guy took three Baneblade hulls in Tucson to a GT. And this guy is an absolute Chad. He went 5-1, showed up on Joshi's Meta Monday video. And so when I watched that video, when I heard about this guy, Hayden Hodge, I'm like, I'm in Arizona. He's in Arizona. One day, I want to meet him. I want to play him. At this GT, I was not able to play him. It would have been absolutely, totally cool if I could. But I believe that this guy was getting paint judged for his diorama. And I got to meet him, and I got a photo of him and his army, and I think that it looks pretty cool. He has a very snow themed terrain. He has like a snow camo net on his shadow sword, so he brought a Hellhammer, Baneblade, and Shadow Sword. The Shadow Sword's the one with the big volcano cannon, and the Hellhammer's the one. It's like a Baneblade with a shorter barrel that can. It doesn't get debuffs when engaged. And I believe that's bolt action terrain. I think he's one of the guys who are a big fan of bolt action, and that's why they play guard. And this guy, he's smiling, he's happy, he's wearing his Carhartt, and that's what I like to see at events. People who are just excited to bring a meme list, play, and if you're good enough, hey, you can go 5-1. But it was a smaller GT he took it to. There were only 30 something players. I did look it up. And at this GT with 116 players, some of the top players in America, guys like I got to meet Ben Jurek from the Art of War. I got to meet Durante Bozzini, who plays Tau. He's been crushing it, but I played a different Tau player who I haven't heard about, and apparently he's another GT winner. Here is another diorama. It's a Dark Angels diorama made by Eddie Meta, and he's a local player. He's part of the Making Saves team. And this diorama is absolutely stunning. I believe this is the one that won the hobby award. But he had some water here, and I think he had water that moved, so he had running water on it at one point. I think this one was the one people were talking about, and it just looks very verdant and lush. And I really like this diorama. It's a completely different style as Hayden Hodges. But as a guard player, of course, I'm going to prefer Hayden Hodges because Bane Blades and snow terrain, that's what I like. Once you start seeing my army, you'll see what I mean. I wish I had a diorama like that. I'm going to be working on one in my free time in the future. But all my tanks are Soviet themed, custom made turrets, and I'm using old metal Valhallan models as Katachan. So this was a very cool event. And here's a photo of one of the judges who were really helpful. You'll see Smite Club terrain, or I mean Smite Club objective markers in some of the games. I'll show you later. But me and a few other newcomers, well, quite a few other newcomers, uh, whose first GT was this event. None of us were told to bring objective markers, I don't think. And they didn't expect so many people not to have objective markers, but they did have some. And for one of the games, they let us use the little neoprene objective marker mats, and that was very cool. And the judges were very helpful. In one of our games, we had an issue submitting the score, and the judge came and helped us out. And in another game, my opponent left his Mauler Fiend on the table, and the judges took care of that. And so the TOs, the judges, they're super nice. And at this event, they really don't care about your paint. Like, unless you're going for the paint competition, they don't care about paint. They don't care about proxies that much. Like, they're very, they allow creativity in your army. And I wasn't the only one. I played against a couple opponents who also had proxies and custom made stuff. So this was altogether it was a very good event. Now, there was one issue I didn't like, and from this photo, you can obviously see what that issue was, is that the tables are all put together long ways. And so it is very difficult to travel to the other side of the board. So if you can't reach over and move your models, then you have to walk all the way around, and people leave their carts in the middle of the walking lanes, and it is very difficult. And by the end of this tournament, I ended up pretty much just crawling under the table. I just pretty much left a space where I could crawl under the table so I could move my models. I believe most of the players that I played and interacted with at this event, they were pretty cool. It was pretty laid back, I think. People weren't, well, at least the people I heard at the tournament, they weren't very hot-headed, I would say. Like in the middle of the game, you'd hear people shouting "Blood for the Blood God" and stuff like that. So it was a very competitive tournament, but there were some casual aspects and, some fun or funny things that happened. And so yeah, first GT, and the location was great. They had lots of parking. They had some food around, and they had available restrooms. I would say for the amount of players that were there, the restrooms were kind of insufficient. Um, I think there were 116 players, and there was one male, one female restroom. But I never had an issue because I use the restroom before my games. One time, what I really didn't like, I don't know if it's this tournament or other tournaments, but one of the things I didn't like is that the first game is great because you have your first game and then you go to lunch. You have plenty of time to pack up, move to your next table. You can have lunch, you can chill, you can go outside and smoke a cigarette, right? But your second and third game of the day, you don't have, you don't really have a break because, you're packing up your models, you're trying to submit the score when you're new and not familiar with the BCP app. I've overheard plenty of people saying the BCP app sucks. Oh, it won't update. Oh, I submitted the score wrong. Yeah, there are issues like that. Luckily, the staff members, the TOs and the judges, they were good at helping us with that. But, when you're dealing with things like that, especially if you're two newer players who have never been to a GT before, you might not have a lot of time in between games. The games are 3 hours long, generally. So you're there for over 9 hours of the day, including lunch break. It's like, and the sign in, you're like there for 10, 11 hours, I believe, at least on your first day. And so getting to use a restroom, that's something you should probably plan for. And if you know that you're gonna that certain foods give you irritable bowel or gas, you should probably avoid that food before you go. I'm not gonna tell you not to eat. I'm just saying, like, I'm lactose intolerant. I'm not gonna have a milkshake before this event. Or I'd be living in their restroom and they'd run out of toilet paper. So anyway, I'm just saying, consider your dietary needs before events like this because you may not have a lot of time to use the restroom. Also, one thing I struggle with is smoking. And so at an event like this, I brought they're called Rogue nicotine lozenges. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just saying that sometimes you might want gum or you might want lozenges. Lozenges are kind of like breath mints kind of, but you know, they got nicotine. So you know, if you're a heavy smoker or you have certain needs, physical needs, you should consider a way to accommodate that or else you're going to have a very uncomfortable time. So when I was first making this video, I was going to include my after action report and battle reports along with this, but I thought it was a little bit better idea that I split it into two separate videos. So if you would like detailed analysis and the battle report with the photos and the different details of the mission, then please check out the next video, part 2 of this Scorched Earth Open series. And there I will be going into a lot more analysis of mistakes that I've made strategically and mistakes that my opponents made strategically, and really do a deep dive of each game and analyze also how the games would have went if we finished some of them. First two games and one of my middle games we finished on time, and then three of the other games we only got to round 3 or 4. So um, like and subscribe if you like my content. I have a lot of guard and knights content primarily on my channel, but as I go to more events and as I try out this different list archetypes, I will be posting more content as well as my usual math hammer and occasionally reviews on news and stuff like that. So again, thank you everybody for watching this video, and definitely check out the next video in this series if you want to see how my Ogren Bangbus, my AP monster list, plays into different opponents. So as always, praise the God Emperor of all mankind and the Omnissiah, and have a great day.
Is to break with facing praise to the God of all machines, to the God of all machines. His sacred decides